Chris Broussard, he's been chomping at the bit. Fox Sports 1 and Fox Sports Radio NBA analyst, has got his show on Fox Sports Radio on the weekends. Tony Parker out for the playoffs. Is this it for the Spurs? Like, that is Ginobili appears to be washed up, appears to be done. We've already seen Duncan retire, and now Tony Parker, who was kind of the last of the Mohicans of that group, is out, and he's not getting any younger. What does this do for this series? What does this do for the future of the Spurs?
I won't write them off against Houston. I still think they could beat Houston. I have that much respect for Greg Popovich and what he's done in San Antonio. They're 23-6 in the last 2 years without Tony Parker. Now, that's all regular season, but still, 23-6. They were 7-1 this year without Kawhi Leonard. So a lot of it, I've said he's the Bill Belichick. They're the New England Patriots of the NBA. So I give them a shot against Houston, even without Parker. Golden State, with or without Parker, I gave them very little chance. I think now it's even less. So at best, they'll get to the conference finals and survive against Houston, but no chance of beating Golden State now, especially without Parker.
Obviously, everybody was impressed by Kawhi last night, by LeBron last night. Not just how great they played, but the efficiency of how they played. Let's start with Kawhi. We heard Shaq say he's my favorite player. We've heard that the best two-way player in the NBA. We've heard that from Charles Barkley previously. What's the general feeling around the NBA about where Kawhi sits in the best player in the league discussion?
Well, everybody I've talked to still has LeBron as the best player. I think now the Kawhi Durant argument. Durant has been the second best player for a few years now. Now Kawhi is moving up in there. I actually would probably put Kawhi ahead of Durant right now. It's very close. I mean, they can switch on and off. But right now, the way Kawhi is dominating games, and I think with Tony Parker out, you're going to see them use him a little bit more like Cleveland uses LeBron, where you already see it somewhat, but where he'll be handling the ball. You know, you saw against Memphis a lot of 4 down or high pick and roll, and Kawhi would just create. I think you'll see even more of that now that Parker's gone and he's handling the ball. He'll get more assists. So his game's going to evolve even more. But with his defense and the three-point shooting, obviously he can take you off the dribble. Now he's actually facilitating for teammates. I mean, this dude is second only to LeBron without question.
I mean, I want people to think, by the way, Parker news is official from the Spurs. A ruptured left quad tendon will miss the remainder of the playoffs. No timetable for his return. Anytime you hear ruptured tendon, that's not great, especially when it's a quad tendon. Chris Broussard continues to join us here in the herd. Doug Gottlieb in for Colin. It's fascinating to me on how sometimes we do get caught up in the MVP discussion, which I want to have with you, in the LeBron versus Jordan discussion. And to me, the playoffs are Isaiah Thomas has improved. Like, we're not operating in a stagnant environment. Kawhi Leonard was a center at MLK High School in Riverside, California, and my brother was an assistant coach at Cal Berkeley. He couldn't get Mike Montgomery to buy into Kawhi Leonard as a center being a Pac-12 level player. Nobody in the Pac-12 offered him a scholarship. And whether he's second or third or the best two-way player, like, that's about improving and evolving. It's incredibly impressive. And here's where I think he separated himself, at least on this argument, from LeBron. He took the best player on the other team and put him on lock. Now, it's hard to do with 21st century basketball because they're always trying to get a switch, right? You're trying that was the other thing the Spurs did. They tried to, whoever James Harden's guarding, that's who we want to go at, right? Just like when you play the Warriors.
That's what Cleveland did with Steph.
Right, that's who we're going at. But that's something that LeBron, with the exception of the Derrick Rose series in 2011, that's the only time LeBron's done that. Whereas Kawhi does it, he doesn't get tired, and he's doing more on the offensive end than he may have ever done. I actually think that puts him, at least on this particular argument, slightly ahead of LeBron.
So are you saying a better player than LeBron?
No. Maybe it's the machismo, and they played without you last night in the.
They barely won. We have been routing teams, my rec league, Fox Sports rec team. We have been routing everyone when I was there.
I've heard you're a mid-range guy. I've heard you're a mid-range guy.
Well, we're old. I'm actually even older school than you.
Yeah.
So
you're like backing dudes down like Mark Jackson? and then
No,
elbowing them.
I still got nice mid-range game.
All right, so
and a little 3 game too.
I can't believe they played without you, but that's probably why they.
I had to watch that Spurs Rockets game.
We grew up around basketball. Okay, I grew up son of a coach, brother of a coach, and we've all been in gyms our whole lives. And the best player was always the guy who could get you a bucket at the end of a game, and was always the guy who would try and lock down the other team's best player. And LeBron is great, but he's different than any other great player because that's not really who he is at either end of the floor.
Don't you think he used to, like you mentioned Derrick Rose and James Harden, he wouldn't always guard a point guard, but he would guard like the best wing player. Like he guards Durant. You know what I mean? He's guarded Durant when in the past.
Is he going to guard Durant when
I'm not sure now because remember, he's in his 14th year now. So I don't expect him to be a lockdown defender in his 14th season. I tweeted out yesterday, he's the only player of all time to be the best player in the world in his 14th year. That's incredible.
Well, it's unbelievable how he's managed his body. It is the efficiency. It is that he knows when to take a night off. He knows when to not participate in the Olympics. Like, look, dude, I can't go overseas. I can't go compete for my country because I need the rest. He's an unbelievable conditioned athlete. What if I made this argument to you? He's been greater longer than Jordan, but Jordan was greater than LeBron's great at Jordan's peak.
I would agree. I mean, I have Jordan as the best player of all time, LeBron second. And I think for LeBron to pass him, or even to argue that he's passed him, he has to win it this year and he has to win it next year, okay? Because then I could argue he beat better teams than Jordan did to win his championships because I don't think Jordan beat a team as good as this Golden State team with probably 4 Hall of Famers when this is all said and done, 2 superstars. And then he will, to your point, have done it for a longer period. And maybe, Jordan retired prematurely and then came back. But, yeah, at their peak, I would definitely take Michael. There was no weakness to Jordan's game. To me, this isn't a huge weakness, but LeBron's not a very good free throw shooter.
Or a great shooter. He's there's a certain Peyton Manning to him, right? Like, you would think the greatest quarterback or one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time would have a great arm. And Peyton Manning never had a great arm. He always played indoors, and he struggled outdoors. And, of course, his arm faded with the surgeries. I mean, he limped to the finish his last year, 9 touchdowns, 17 interceptions in his final season. And to me, that's actually a badge of courage. Like, if you can be the greatest or one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time and not have a great arm, it shows how everything else you've done compensated for it. It's the same with LeBron. Like, LeBron goes through stretches where he doesn't trust his jump shot. He loses his confidence. And yet he's still been able to be great without a lubricated jump shot. Like, Jordan went from no jump shot to the best jump shooter in the league to the best post player in the league late in his career. And he had just such confidence in it. I think that would be how I would kind of give him credit, even though also admitting that there's that one flaw in his game.
Yeah, I mean, he's certainly not a great shooter. He's shooting it terrifically right now from 3 for some reason. But he's a streaky shooter. Right. But Kobe wasn't a great shooter.
He's much more of a volume guy.
Volume, but was a good shooter, got hot. And Jordan wasn't a great, even at the end, he wasn't what you'd call a great shooter. Certainly not from 3. The mid-range game was all there, and obviously the post game. But the reason I put LeBron at number 2, he just passed Kareem Abdul-Jabbar for playoff scoring, second all time. The reason I would put him ahead of a Jabbar, a Shaq, a Wilt, or whoever you might say, is the big men need a perimeter star to win. Shaq never won it without Kobe or Wade. Right. Kareem never won it without Oscar or Magic. If I have LeBron and virtually nothing else, I'm going to be really good. I may not win it, but I'm going to be really good. That's not true if I have a great center.
Yeah, I think Caron Butler went overboard when he said North Carolina could make the playoffs with LeBron. But I get and agree the point.